down to Dort. This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to dunk. This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
I'm Josh Giddy, and I'm down to dunk.
Hey, this is Kenny Hustle, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Darius Baisley, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Mike Muscala, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Poku, and I'm down to dunk.
I love cereal. Captain Crunch, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Cracklin' Oat Bran.
Oh, I can have these. I'm gonna share with my team, but I'm gonna hog most of them.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Wednesdays is my good friend Alex Spears. Alex, what's up?
What's up, Andrew?
What are you doing?
Just chilling, bro.
You are so chilling. I can't hardly hear you.
Oh, you can't? Oh,
There we go.
Did you enjoy the game last night?
I loved that game last night. Yes.
What a blast.
That was such a fun game. See, I just don't understand the people that were against the play-in to begin with. And if you're against it now, like you're just losing, because having a single elimination game is so great. And it means so much to these teams. And I loved the post-game energy from everybody. I loved the entire game. I loved Glue Girl getting her hand glued.
You loved Glue Girl.
It was the whole experience was incredible. Just what an incredible experience. Yeah, she kind of shifted the momentum for the Clippers. They were starting to roll a little bit, and then Glue Girl stops everything.
I can't believe it looked like Elmer's if you saw the photo.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
Like there are so much stronger bonds, Andrew. So much stronger bonding glues she could have used.
It could have been a Gorilla Glue, I guess.
I guess that's, but even that, I've just been putting together a crib. Those got a cure for 24 hours, Andrew.
It's true.
She needed to go with a really sticky super glue.
So do you think that they had to, when they pulled her hand off? Do you think that they had?
No, I bet it came right off because it looked wet.
Yeah, that was a weird deal. It was
Poor
great
planning.
though. It was a great moment. There's so many things from that game. And the number one thing for Thunder fans is that the Clippers lost, and we're one loss away from getting another lottery pick, which probably won't happen, but maybe could happen.
You never know. And I'm rooting for the Pelicans tonight just because I think they are the better team.
Agreed.
And if you look at their record after that 3-16 start, like they've not been one of the best teams, but they've been like a solid team in the league.
Yeah.
Like compared to anyone. And BI is back. CJ's healthy.
Let's go.
Like, they seem to have everything they would need. And like if Kawhi isn't going to come back by Thursday, I think it's pretty even. Like other than the fact that it's going to be in LA.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty even matchup.
And we got Herb on PG. Let's go.
Yeah.
Come
we
on.
got Herb on PG. I mean, the Pelicans can match them in terms of firepower with BI and CJ.
I know. See the CJ trade. If they make the playoffs, and it's like because of the CJ trade, it's just incredible.
Yeah, it's huge. And I tweeted out like how big that game could be for Portland, because for OKC, it's like our pick would change likely by like a few spots.
Yeah.
Although we would still have the opportunity for the Clippers pick to jump up in the top 4, which would obviously be very exciting.
Oh, very exciting.
But for the Blazers, like it changes their offseason.
And potentially their trajectory.
Yeah, because the whole idea right now in Portland is they're going to trade one of these picks for Jeremy Grant.
Yeah.
And then they still have that other pick to either build towards the future or to make another trade. And if they go into the summer only with one of those blue chip picks, it just makes it a lot harder, because now it's like, okay, I guess we can still trade this for Jeremy Grant, but we have like nothing in the pipeline. Like we had this one chance to be in the lottery and get a decent pick, and now we're just throwing that away. It would just make that decision a lot tougher for them.
So if the Pelicans are going on a run, hoop idea, hire Glue Girl to go glue her hand to the floor in LA. Just get Glue Girl on an airplane and get her to LA.
Well, she was tweeting last night, Glue Girl. I don't know if you saw it.
People were. I didn't see the tweets. I didn't see the Google Girl tweets.
She's out and about. Oh my gosh, I have to go stop that, or it's going to do that 3 more times.
You should go stop that. Yeah, that was an incredible game. I would predict that the Clippers are going to win and get into the playoffs. However, it would be great if they did not, and the Thunder could get a better pick. It'd be great. It's just more positivity to inject into the Thunder fan base here on this Wednesday morning.
Yeah, you felt like it was pretty positive yesterday.
Oh man, Al, it was. Michael Clampett is on point here. He says, "Inject that exit interview propaganda into my veins."
I wasn't keeping up with the rest of the league. Of course, they may not even have their exit interviews yet, but I'd be interested to see how it compared, because it did feel like, I'm not gonna say over the top, but it was like excessively positive.
Yeah, Detroit's was the same way.
Yeah,
for those wondering if we're an exceptional bad team. Detroit's was very much the same. They've already done their exit interviews with coach, players, and Troy Weaver was yesterday. So Sam Preston will do his exit interview next week. So that should be interesting. And it's kind of great that we get to space out the content here. Thank you, Sam, for allowing us to space out the content here.
So when is he?
Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was excessively positive. Obviously, I feel like the headline, regardless of the quotes, is just like Shea's, just how Shea was in that interview.
So context that was not in. So if you haven't heard the exit interviews, I put them in a podcast form that's on this feed, and I put the timestamps. So if you only wanted to listen to a few guys, you could, go get those. So Shea walks into the room. I'm sitting there. I'm working on. So at the same time, all day yesterday, I'm working on No Dunks and their F1 podcast throughout this whole thing. So I'm sitting there working in between. There's usually about 15, 20 minutes in between each player or coach. And Shea walks in and he's like, "What's up, what's up, what's up?" to everybody. And he's just like so excited, sits down. He has a do-rag on and he sees himself in the Zoom camera, and then like immediately just like tries to just takes his do-rag off as quick as he can, as if it's something bad. I don't know. It's funny. And he just proceeds to like just be the most positive person in the room. And like a lot of the quotes are really encouraging because there's always a lot of people that are taking the feelings they have about the rebuild and placing them onto Shea.
Right.
Like, I am tired of this. So therefore Shea must be tired of this.
Yeah.
And because when players are tired of things, they want to be traded. Shea is going to ask to be traded because this sucks, because I don't like this. Not because they have any information about Shea, but it's because they don't like it.
Right. Yeah, and it really was in stark contrast, because like even Shea said in the interview, like if I'm ever mad, like you'll know it.
Yeah.
Like you'll
be
able to tell.
Yeah.
And it was in stark contrast to that press conference earlier in the season, like the Plan A press conference, where you could tell like something was just a little off.
There was definitely something off at that post-game press
at that moment.
100%.
Yeah.
100% there was.
And so contrasting it with this, which like he was like the happiest guy in the world.
Yeah.
and the things he was saying, like, so I pulled this from Joe Masato's article. He said, "We talk all the time, and every time we talk, I get a little bit more excited. Excited about what?" He said, "I just think me, Sam, and Mark have a lot of trust in each other. I can't go into details, but we're excited for the future." I thought that was really interesting. Like just that I can't go into details, because I'm just wondering what he's thinking of when he says that he's not saying. Because like what could it possibly be? Like I almost thought, like, I wonder if it's like specifically about like the type of big man that they want to bring in or something. Like what is it that he's so excited about? It can't just be them saying like we're going to get a lot of draft picks and bring in young guys. Like it has to be more specific than that for him to get so excited. So they must have like some more concrete of a plan that we obviously aren't privy to that he's excited about. And I just wonder what it could possibly be, because so much feels up in the air right now from the fan perspective.
It'd be great to know. I think he knows that he's going to be one of the best players on a team that Sam Presti expects to be great. Is part of that.
Yeah,
that's kind of like the easy line to draw on what's exciting, because when you start to think about what they've got and the fact that they have all these picks in this next draft and then a bunch of picks in the next draft, like they're going to get better. The question is, how much better are they going to get? But they're certainly going to get better than they have been. And if you listen to the podcast that McKelly and I did on Monday, like there's people out there, including McKelly, that think this team is a lot better than they are today. He thinks they could have been the Spurs of this season. And he's not alone in that. There were people that I talked to yesterday that thought the same thing. And we'll see. One of the other quotes that was kind of making the rounds was Mark talking about how next season is going to be as they add more players to this team, add more competition to the team, and then he said they're going to have a chance to declare themselves.
Yeah, obviously that sounded great to McKelly, and a lot of other people who like want tanking to be over. And I even saw some comments on Twitter of people like declaring the tank is over.
Well, trust me, when I tweeted that out, I got several quote tweets and people commenting underneath like, "Thank God the tank is over."
Right. and then you had the Dort comment about the playoffs, but and we'll get into that. But for me, it's like, how is that any different from what they did this year? Like, did they not allow that team to declare itself at the beginning of the year? They played all of their vets. They played their good players at the beginning of this year.
I would agree.
How is that different from what he just said they're going to do? I think it's the same thing.
I don't think it's different either. Nothing yesterday changed my mind about what's going to be different next year. I do think they'll be more talented, which is that's like the thing that they need. Will they be talented enough? My answer is no, based on any outcome that's possible with this team for next year. Like, I think the answer is still no. And does that mean that they have to get like a top 3 pick in the following draft? No, they don't have to get to where they want to be. Would it be great? Yeah, it'd be awesome. It'd be freaking great. Then I feel like really confident about this team ceiling. But even just adding like the 7th pick in the 23 draft would be another great piece going forward for this squad. Like, I just think about the Suns and like the Mikal Bridges piece and how big that's been for them. Like, he's not the piece, but would they be anywhere close to the team they are now? Like, it would be tough. Like, if they just had some random wing in there in place of him, like they're just certainly not the team they are. So if you could, still a lot hinges on how this draft lottery goes. If they can get in the top 4, you're feeling pretty good about just needing to add like the 7th pick in the following draft to start to form the core of what you want. And then you can make trades or whatever you need to do. Or if something becomes available, you can be opportunistic, but you certainly are going to feel better about where this team is headed.
Yeah. If they got a big guy in this draft as like your starting center for next year. Yeah. Like I absolutely believe they're going to play functional lineups at the beginning of the season because that's what they did this season. And they'll see how it goes. I'm just still dubious that if they get to January, February, and they're just like kind of like hovering around 10th, like, are they really going to push it at that point? Or are they just going to do the same thing?
No, same thing. Same thing.
That's how I feel. So like for them to declare themselves and change the trajectory of the plan, I feel like they would need to be not in like the 6th spot, but if they were like solidly in the 7th or 8th, where it's going to take like there's no levers. There's not
It would
enough levers to
It would
even
have to
fall
be
back
like the
that
Chris
far.
Paul team, because I do think that they intended for that Chris Paul team to not be a very good team. That there was
that's actually because if that team had been like and back then I don't even think they had the play-in. So like if that team had been in like the 9th spot in February, I feel like they would have started resting players.
They did have the play-in. They had the first year of the play-in was the bubble in the bubble.
Okay.
But still, they were too good to tank.
Right.
They absolutely were. And if this team is like 4th when we hit December, I think you're like, all right, here we go. This is kind of what you have to say with this squad. But if, like, you're right, if they're 9th or 10th, you're like, all right, guys, let's start to settle down a little bit.
So that's why I'm like interested in Michele's point of view, because I just wonder, like, does he must feel good enough about the team that he thinks they are going to like shift that trajectory in season, like where they will be too good to tank. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think that's his point.
Yeah,
if they play the right lineups, in which, like, they didn't play the Shea, Giddy, Muscala, Kenrich, whoever else lineup that much.
But at the same time, like, how much are they going to play Mike Muscala?
Yeah,
like, really?
Yeah, I agree. There, and I've asked Mark that question earlier in the season about like his on-offs and the lineup data on him, and he's like, well, listen, like, it's good, but if you try to extrapolate that over 25 minutes or 30 minutes a game, it's going to start to look worse.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you would consider big that came out of it?
Kenrich declared another declaration that he wants to retire as a member of the Thunder.
Okay.
I was asking him, like, what does it mean to you? I say, you've really established yourself as like a wing that can help a lot of teams. Like I said, whether or not the trade rumors were correct, like, you were in a lot of them at the trade deadline and could have gone to help a good team. However, you are still here. Like, what does that mean to you? And then he's talked about how he wants to retire here, yada, yada. And then my follow-up was like, you still have a long ways to go in your career. Like, what makes you say you want to retire here now? Kind of my question was like, like, why are you doing this now? Like, you don't have to do this, Kenrich. We like you well enough where you don't have to go over the top here. But I think he's pretty genuine about it. I think he really does. Like, when you talk about the culture of the organization, which in some ways is overplayed and in some ways it's underplayed, but like, Kenrich, like, buys into it 100%. Like, he really does love it here. He really does want to be here. I have a source behind the scenes that like says the same stuff. That's been saying the same stuff about Kenrich. And he does. He genuinely loves it here and he wants to be here. I think if he was even like lukewarm on the Thunder, they probably would have traded him. And he's still like an interesting piece that I think we almost forget about at times, that when this team is ready to compete, if Kenrich Williams can play 75 games in a season, like, he's going to be in your top 8. Like, he's good enough to come off the bench and help you. It's just another interesting wrinkle within all of this, that they already kind of have a role player that, man, if they would have had a player like him in the Paul George era of the Thunder, like, he would have played a ton, or even in the Kevin Durant era. Like, they were always looking for and needing like a bigger wing, like instead of playing Derek Fisher, instead of playing Corey Brewer, like, there was always that slot where it's like they always have a great top 4, and then that 5th slot, you're like, oh man. Like, I think I bring this up all the time, but I just remember that game. I think it was the last game of the regular season before the playoffs where Corey Brewer got hurt. And it was just like, what are we going to do without Corey Brewer? Like, how are we going to survive this postseason without him? And it's like that statement should have let us know that we were doomed to begin with.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm obviously happy that Kenrich wants to stay here. I mean, like you said, he's a type of player that we just haven't had, like that type of consistency. So I'm excited about that. And I thought it was cool that, I don't know who asked it, but asking about the payout that they're going to get from being below the salary floor.
That's my guy, Joe. You should have seen Kenrich's face, because he asked this to several guys, and everybody else just kind of, sat there and kind of nodded. Kenrich, like when he heard like bonus, his smile just started to perk up. And then as Joe is talking, like you can see that he's thinking about, like, I'm going to get $1.5 million into my bank account here pretty soon. This is amazing. Like, his smile got so big. It was really a cool moment, because he's as far as like NBA role players go, like, he's definitely underpaid. And for him to essentially double his salary just because, just on a salary cap technicality that didn't even involve him.
Right.
Like, it's incredible. Like, it's an incredible thing for him.
Not only that, but like, even though we really like Kenrich, like, he's non-guaranteed for next year.
Yeah.
And they can wait as long as opening night to guarantee that. Now, we think that they're going to guarantee that, but for a guy like him who knows that he doesn't have guaranteed money coming, and any injury he gets could potentially affect whether that guarantee gets exercised or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fact that you would get that type of a bonus is obviously a huge deal.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because it's almost what he's going to make next season.
I know. I am really, really glad. I was thinking the Thunder were going to do something else. Had heard a few things that the Thunder might try to go get somebody else and bring him in and pay him big, like they did with Gabby Deck. I'm so glad they didn't, because I would rather the guys that have been here be rewarded than pay some guy that you're like, they're paying who, what, like, why,
Yeah.
Because at this point, there's just not a lot of guys that are worth the kind of contract that they would have to float out there.
Right.
Them to bring them in. So I was just like, just give these guys something, like throw these guys a bone here. Like, I think it's awesome. I think it's great for those dudes.
And then another thing that came out that was interesting was about Dort's injury.
Yeah.
The fact that he has been dealing with that pain for months, like going back to the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Because he said, I didn't know coming into the season I had it, but I didn't really feel it. I thought it was just shoulder pain. I didn't think it was that serious.
Mm-hmm.
Which just makes you wonder about, like, could a potential shooting improvement next season be as a result of the fact that he doesn't have a torn labrum?
Some shoulder injury, offensive boost propaganda for the pod.
Why not?
I like it.
Why not?
I like it.
This is like when like Jameis Winston got LASIX and people were like, well, he can see now, so he's not going to throw interceptions anymore. And I'm kind of feeling that way about Dort. Like, maybe you just fix his labrum and all of a sudden he can shoot it.
Maybe Dort's had a torn labrum his whole life. And
his whole life.
And
maybe.
And he is Klay Thompson, really, underneath the torn labrum.
Do you know which shoulder it is? Is it his shooting shoulder? Or is it his off shoulder?
I don't know. I need to look again. I can look.
But yeah, he said he still has 2 to 3 months to be back at 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it was interesting that it was there the whole time, because like we knew about Muscala's injury way before surgery. The fact that he had this ankle injury that was likely going to need surgery. He was talking about off season, and a lot of times we just don't know what injuries guys are actually dealing with. And so I don't know. It makes me feel a little bit better that Dort had a torn labrum the entire season. Apparently, that affects a little bit of how I think about that season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the same way that, like, with Paul George, when he was here, like, yes, he was still playing, and yes, he was still putting up numbers. You go back and look at some of those playoff performances, like, he was still putting up numbers, but at the same time, it wasn't the same guy.
It was his off shoulder.
His off shoulder. All right. Well, that doesn't make me feel as good, but
could still affect things.
Maybe he wanted to shoot with his other hand, and he couldn't because of the torn labrum.
This is a plum dog situation going on here.
Possibly. But yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else that Mark said? I know Mark. A lot of people liked Mark's.
Yeah, I mean,
conference.
I always love listening to Mark talk. I think he's really good. Nothing especially different because he was being asked a lot of these kind of questions before the season ended as well.
Yeah.
Just generally a lot of positivity around Mark. Not only what he said, but what the player said about him. And I think that we forget a little bit about the development of Mark. That he's still like he's our age, and is learning how to be an NBA coach.
Right.
And is still okay with being called Mike Degnault. So it's just like another interesting wrinkle to all of this. That he is, in a world where most of the guys are in their 50s, that are coaching 40s or 50s, to be as young as he is, like he's got a long ways to go in development. Will he end up being the future, like be the coach of the Thunder in 5 years? I really just don't know. However, he fits this organization like a glove with the way that he speaks, and I think his overall demeanor. He's a very, very humble individual. That's a millionaire basketball coach. I think he fits the city too. I think if you were to like match a coach with the city, like he matches it pretty well. So I think it's great. I'm excited to see kind of how he actually will get to coach a team, because he's up until now it's just development only for him,
Right.
and he's developing a system, and that's helped the team win some games. And when it's time to really press go, what does it look like? Because it will be different. It will look a lot different than this, and it will feel a lot different than this. And I think you kind of forget about that when wins do matter. Like winning isn't easy in the NBA. It really isn't. I know sometimes it felt easy as we're watching these teams win, as they like beat the Phoenix Suns at home with Poku and scraps. It felt easy. However, when other teams know that you want to win, winning isn't easy. So,
especially when obviously there's internal expectations, but there are very low external expectations right now.
There's like,
in fact, it's like
that they do the opposite.
Right. So like, there's no outside pressure in like a real way. There's outside pressure to win in like the anti-tanking way.
Yeah.
But in terms of like what the Wolves experienced this year, where you're like fluctuating back and forth between the playoffs and the play-in, like that's just a totally different set of expectations.
Yeah. It will be different, and it will feel different.
I thought it was interesting. One of his quotes that got a lot, or that was making the rounds, was like, "Everyone knows what we're doing," like that kind of a quote.
Yeah.
Which it's a good quote because it's vague enough where he can just say, like, I was just talking about rebuilding and like working on development. But if you want to believe that he is being explicit about tanking, it also works that way as well.
You're right. It is a great ambiguous tanking quote. It is. Yeah. And we asked everybody about tanking and the plan, and I asked a lot of the players about like the draft picks. Like, and Baisley probably gave the most interesting answer, where it was like, I was like, it's like the plan is to rebuild, and you guys are doing that now, but one of the biggest parts of it is that Sam Presti's acquired a record number of draft picks, and those draft picks are starting to pour in, and there's going to be more guys this summer, there's going to be more guys that summer after. It's like, does that give you more motivation, or does that make you excited? Like, what's your feel on that portion of the plan? And he kind of sat there and he was like, I just don't really care about that. And he's like, not that I don't. He's like, what I mean is like, I'm just not thinking about it, that I'm more just kind of focused on myself. Aaron Wiggins, who I didn't post his because we were there all day, and I didn't post a few of them because I was already up to 2 hours long of the podcast. Aaron Wiggins also gave like another interesting answer. He said, like, listen, like, yeah, it gives me motivation, but that's how teams get better. Like, this is how the team gets better, is that these other players are going to come in this summer and they're going to add a level of competition to what we're already doing. And it's going to make us better players, and it's going to make them better players because you don't have a guaranteed spot. Which I really like that answer.
Do you want to go through a real quick roster reset just so people understand like who has guaranteed money going into next year and who doesn't? Andrew is saying 1 second. You know what? Let's just go ahead and do it. So I thought it'd be interesting just to go through the roster, talk real quickly about who has guaranteed money for next year so that we can start trying to figure out where, if there are going to be cuts, where they might be coming from. So real quickly, guaranteed money in terms of like, this guy is going to be on the roster unless he is traded. SGA, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm talking about guaranteed deals for next year, Andrew.
Okay. Yep.
So SGA, 5 years, his big contract starts next year.
Real paid.
Derek Favors in the media day or whatever that was, exit interviews, said that he's probably going to pick up his player option. So he's
put it up, baby.
Probably going to be here. That's $10.1 million. Yep. Giddy, obviously, still on his rookie deal. Poku is on his rookie deal. His 4th year option has the option to be picked up before the start of next season.
They're picking it up.
Probably going to pick it up. Trey Mann, obviously on a rookie deal. Bays on a rookie deal. He is extension eligible. He can get a max of 5 years, $184 million, Andrew, I learned. What do you think?
He said he is letting his agent deal with that.
Okay.
He's not even thinking about it. He's thinking about family, God, and basketball. Those are the 3 things he's thinking about. That's it.
That's great. So we know he's going to be a restricted free agent in 23 if they didn't extend him, and his cap hold next summer would be $12.7 million.
Woo!
Also, who would have a cap hold next summer at $12.7 million? Ty Jerome, who is also extension eligible, can also get a 5-year max for $184 million. That's
not going to happen. Ty Jerome also did not put his interview on there. One of the best interview of the day.
Okay. So, and then you have Jerry, obviously still on his rookie deal, although the following year, and this is true of Wiggins as well, both of them have guaranteed money next year, but the following year, both of them are fully non-guaranteed.
Ooh.
So they're definitely here for next year, unless they were traded. But otherwise,
who's the other one? I'm sorry, I missed the
Wiggins and JRE.
Yeah.
So those are 9 players already who have guaranteed money for next year.
Mm-hmm.
Just laying that out. Of those, like maybe Ty Jerome, who knows? Like if they moved someone in the deal,
I mean, obviously they could if they moved on from him. Yeah.
So that's 9 guys guaranteed money if they didn't do anything. Partially guaranteed is just Veet, who has about 800,000 guaranteed. The rest of it non-guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he got surgery.
Yeah, he had surgery yesterday.
Makes me think that he might not be on the team next year and might just get that 800,000 guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like, is he good enough where you want to bring him back and rehab him and take up a roster spot?
I think he'll be ready by the start of the season.
Yeah.
So to me, I think they like him. I think they want to see if he can athletically get to the level that he was in Europe. Because he wasn't that with the Thunder. And still showed flashes of shooting and ball handling and offensively really understanding the game. Defensively, he's got a long ways to go. Michael Ashton, I want to make sure I answer this, says, did Ty Jerome, Mike Muscala, Roby, and Veet not get interviewed? Ty Jerome and Roby did. they did not make the podcast cut. And then Veet wasn't there because he had surgery, and Mike Muscala was not there either, which I was highly disappointed that Mike wasn't there.
So speaking of Mike Muscala, so that's partially guaranteed. It's just one guy. Now we go to the non-guaranteed. There's 6 guys here, which would take us up to 16 people. Yeah. Kenrich Williams, $2 million, non-guaranteed. It doesn't guarantee until opening night. We expect them to guarantee that.
Lock it in, baby. Lock that in.
So that gets us up to 10 guys with guaranteed money. Okay. Mike Muscala, team option for $3.5 million. He's unrestricted. If they picked it up, he'd be unrestricted free agent next summer.
Lock it in, baby.
You think that's a lock it in?
Lock that puppy in.
So that would be 11. Teo has 1.9 non-guaranteed. 100% non-guaranteed.
I don't know. I don't have a good feel for that one at all. I know they like him. In Mark's words, he attacks the program.
Okay.
However, he wasn't good this year. And let's say they select a guard at 15 or at 30 even.
Or at 4.
To me, that's just like, all right, bye, Teo. And how hard is it to replace Teo Maladone in the lineup?
In this lineup, not difficult.
In any lineup, not difficult.
Well, that's probably true as well. But
I think that Teo, to me, could be a guy that comes back to the NBA at some point. But I think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for him to go develop more, and then if he wanted to come back when he was like 25 or something.
Well, I was talking to you about the Wizards as an option for Teo because their point guards right now are Satoransky and Ish Smith.
I'd argue that they're both way better than Teo.
They are, but it's like you have nothing in the pipeline in terms of guards. You're playing with like 2 30-plus point guards who have been on 12 teams each. Yeah. Like, don't you want just someone to get you a little bit excited that's young and is a guard? Anyways, I thought
if that's getting you excited, it's very, very sad.
Oh, I feel like that is just like us with Eric Maynor back in the day, where it's like this team doesn't even want their first round pick that they just drafted, and we're like, well, this guy could really be something. This is exciting.
Maynor was good though. Maynor was legitimately good.
He was good until he got hurt.
He was legitimately a good point guard.
Backup point guard. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was just surprised because that was one I didn't know. I didn't realize that Teo's deal was completely non-guaranteed. They can get out of it if they want to.
Yeah. Alex Bullerjack says, I left and all of a sudden we're talking Teo Maladone spit on other teams.
Okay, so we're still at 11 players
that
you feel really confident on.
Yeah.
Next is Lou Dort, who also has non-guaranteed. We think
lock it in, baby.
Right. So now we're at 12.
12 guys.
Then you get to Isaiah Roby, who has the 1.9 million non-guaranteed team option, and they have to decide by July 3rd. So that's a pretty quick one.
Yeah, they got to figure that out. I wouldn't bring him back if it were me.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's not back. I think if you really didn't get any bigs in this draft, which I feel like is going to be hard to do, but if you didn't, maybe then you bring him back.
I guess. Rather bring back Horde.
Oh yeah, you're a Horde man now.
Hoarding the boards, man. I could see him fitting in on a team more easier than Roby, just because Horde can just come off the bench and play some defense, get some boards, hoard the boards.
Do you feel like you're just anti-Roby because of the shot against Portland?
It's definitely a piece of the puzzle. Definitely. Yeah, for sure.
And then the last guy is Lindy Waters, who's on a 2-way. So I think they have the option to bring him back on a 2-way next year. Obviously, they could give him a real contract. But as of today, it feels like Lindy Waters will be the 2-way guy for next year.
Agreed.
Will be one of the 2-way guys.
Agreed.
Who the other one will be, I don't know, because they obviously ran through they tried a bunch of different guys out in that spot.
Horde.
It could be Horde. Do you remember who were the 2-way guys at the beginning of this year?
It was the Raptors old guy.
Raptors old guy.
Yeah, what's his name? Gosh.
Raptors. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
It was Aaron Wiggins.
Yeah, Aaron Wiggins.
And it was Josh Hall.
Josh Hall was on this team at the beginning of the year?
That's what it said to me when I Googled it.
Huh. Well, that's funny. Josh Hall somehow had some believers out there. I don't know what he did.
He did for sure
to get them, but he had them.
He had them.
Yeah.
So just going. That's our roster reset. So right now, based on what you said in terms of lock it in, we already have 12 guys.
I know
that we feel confident will have guaranteed money next year, and then we have one guy in Lindy Waters who we feel like could be the one of the two-way spots.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're talking about 3 roster spots left, and then 1 two-way spot left.
Paul Watson is the Raptors' old guy.
Oh, Paul Watson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was Josh Hall first, but if it wasn't, I'm sorry. And also, I don't really care.
I don't think Josh Hall was on the Thunder this year.
At all?
I don't think so.
Wow. Well, what are you going to do?
I'm not going to do anything.
What are you going to do? So how many picks do they have in this draft?
They've got 4 in the top 34.
They have 4 in the top 34. And as we just discussed, there are maybe 4 openings. And then that's not
12 guys, so they've got 3 openings.
Well, plus a two-way.
Yeah, well, I guess you could put the 34th pick on a 2-way.
Yeah, which would kind of be a bummer for them. But again, that's not including Teo or Roby or Veet or any of the 10. Or no, Veet is not included in that 12 number. If you want to include him, now you're at 13. That's why I'm saying like Veet's probably not going to be on this team next year.
You mean Xavier Simpson's not going to make the roster next year?
Yeah, I didn't even mention any of the 10-day guys.
Captain Hook, Yorgos.
If you're a Yorgos fan, but again, one of them could be on a 2-way, but like they're going to have to trade away guys and not take guys back just to free up roster spots. If you like any of these players that we're talking about, Teo, Roby, Krejci.
Those guys, you have to waive them though. Like those aren't guys that you're going to be like, hey, anybody got a 2nd round pick for Teo? And everybody's going to be like, no.
You don't. What? Okay, but what about like Ty Jerome?
Who's going to give up a 2nd rounder for Ty Jerome?
What about a top 55 protected 2nd rounder?
Yeah, if you just want to feel good that something came to your team, sure.
I'm just saying, like something's about to happen. These guys aren't going to be on this team next year.
I know.
We just went through it. There's no spots for them. So if you're really high on these guys, like just do the math. Where are they going to play? We only get 15 spots and two ways.
Yeah, the answer is that many of the guys that you said. That's why I'm like, you can make the case that like Teo, Roby, Veet, gone. Because if you're gonna,
where are you gonna put them?
And that's just saying like maybe we only take 3 guys and we trade one of the picks.
Right. Maybe you do one consolidation trade to move up and you take 3 guys. I mean, even if you want to say they're only going to take 2 guys, like that still only leaves 2 spots. And one of those would be a 2-way spot. And is like, are you really putting Teo in a 2-way spot? Like, I guess you could, but.
Yeah, that would be so sad.
So the other option would be to trade some of these guys in some way, and of like the guaranteed guys.
Yeah.
So like for me, actually, I want to ask you this. So one thing they could do though is they could buy out Favors, and that would free up a spot.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so that gets us back down to 11.
Or they could include Favors as a part of a trade where they take on, but then you have to take on additional money, which means you're taking on an additional player, so that really doesn't help you.
Right.
But I could see a world where they take Favors' expiring contract and a pick, or they acquire another pick, like a 2nd rounder or something, to like a good 2nd rounder to take on like somebody that has 2 years left or something like that. Like that's something that I could imagine.
I don't know. If the roster crunch is that bad, I do feel like the buyout becomes like a much more realistic option. I'm sure they don't want to do that, but because they have so much dead money for next year,
They're gonna have a lot of dead money.
Not that it really matters, but it's just kind of funny.
Well, it's just interesting too, because when you think about when this team wants to be competitive and how they can be competitive, the salary, it's not like they're going to have big problems next year. They're not, but like the constraints, like they're way more constrained today and this next season than they will be the season after.
Yeah,
because the season after, the Kemba deal is gone, the Favors deal is gone.
That's $37 million.
Yeah, it's a ton of money that was just going to just be off the books completely. And like, if you don't think like that is 100% planned out, like that's another like indicator in my mind of when are they going to try to really compete? Well, when do we have like the most flexibility? Because next summer will be the time the Thunder will have the most flexibility they will have in this era financially.
Especially if that really is the plan, then you kind of assume they will not extend Bays. They will not extend Ty Jerome. They will not give Dort a new deal now. They'll wait to do all of that until next summer when they have maximum flexibility.
I think to me, it's the smart thing to do is to wait, because I do think Lou wants to be a part of this team. I think Bazley will be restricted anyways. It doesn't matter. And if somebody's given Bazley a giant restricted free agent deal, it's like, all right, good luck,
Yeah, you'd be happy for him. I mean, and obviously that could change based on what he does next year. If he comes in next year and is shooting 38% from three and he's playing the same defense, like obviously there's going to be teams interested.
Yeah, he's a helpful player. And maybe you match it. At that point, there's a chance that you match it. But I'm just saying, like, let's gather as much information that we have to understand where we think the Thunder might go.
That is scary, though, with Dort, because in that scenario, he is an unrestricted free agent if you wait all the way until next summer. So any team could sign him. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, every fan base likes him.
Yeah.
Like, he's one of those guys where when you're on another fan base, you don't see any of the warts. Like, you just see, like, oh, this guy can lock down and had, like, a 30-point game. Like,
yeah.
We do it with players around the league.
Yeah, people forget that Dort scored 17 points per game this season. Isn't that kind of wild to think about?
I guess, yeah. It is, yes.
I mean, just to think about the player that he was when he came onto this team.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, no matter what the roster is, just to say, if you were to say, hey, let's bet $100 right now, if you think that Dort will average, let's just say even over 15 points per game in any season in the NBA, like right. I would have under and thought I was about to make some money.
We were thinking like Andre, best case scenario.
Yeah, and he's well surpassed that.
Right. So if he came back next year, he's healthy, all of a sudden he can shoot now because his shoulder works, and he shoots like a decent percentage, and maybe there's better players on the team, so he's only averaging like 15 per game, but his defense is like right there. Like, there's going to be a lot of suitors for that player. Even though like he's not, obviously, like you would love him to be 6'6", like 6'6" Dort is like 20+ million.
Yeah, I was gonna say 6'6" Dort is a max player to some teams.
Yeah,
like not joking.
But still, even as like he's going to have suitors next year if you let him get all the way to unrestricted free agency.
Yeah, and
that's the only thing that would scare me.
I think that I would just trust Sam in the front office with that one, because they did the same thing with Jeremy Grant. Is that they let Jeremy get to unrestricted free agency. That same year that they signed Paul George to his extension, Jeremy was unrestricted, and
it's because they were dampening his value by not playing him over Melo.
They did that season. Melo was gone, right? Oh no! You're right.
Yeah, because it was after the
Brought him off.
Jazz.
Yeah. They did play. They did bench him in the last game. Bench Melo in the last.
Yes, the very last game. It was so nice to see. No Rubio.
Hey, maybe they're balancing Dort's value with injuries here. He's injury prone. You don't want this guy.
I feel like you could say that about the entire Thunder team.
Exactly.
Based on how many games they play per year.
That's exactly right. That will be an interesting storyline. But to me, I think it makes sense to just push it all the way to 23, be as flexible as possible, be able to do as many moves as possible. I think you bring back Dort in the summer, unless his agent agrees to something egregious where it's like, yeah, we'll do a 12 million per year for 3 years.
Yeah.
And you're just like, yep, sign us up. That's great. That's a great number. And then you lose a little bit of flexibility, but you gain not only a great player on a great contract, but like an incredible trade piece too. Because if any team, like he becomes a guy that is like instantly tradable for like a late lottery pick,
Yeah, for sure.
Where any team could say, you know what, like I'd rather just have Dort than the 11th pick. And the Thunder may really like somebody at 11 in whatever draft it is. That to me is, and it's like the range where it's like, yeah, this is probably the right, cost.
Yeah, because we're going through the roster and mainly just thinking of it in terms of roster spots. But when you start factoring in playing time, then it like really gets dicey. Because it's like, if all these dudes are healthy coming into next season, like how are some of these guys even getting on the court? And they're not. And they're people, and they're guys that like we're kind of excited about for one reason or another. But how are they even getting on the court? Like Teo's not playing next year if everyone's healthy.
Play on this team.
He didn't play on this team, but like he is not playing any minutes on this team if everyone's healthy.
No.
And there's probably other guys like that. Like I'm going through the roster. I don't know who it would be necessarily, especially if you factor in they're bringing in like a big man from the draft.
Yeah. Let's just say the starting lineup is SGA, Dort, Giddy, draft pick, Jeremiah. Whether he plays the 4 or the 5, who cares?
Right.
And then
they're going to play Kenrich and Muscala at the beginning of the season.
Kenrich, yeah.
So that's up to 7. They're going to play Bays if he's here. That's 8.
Bays for sure.
And now we're at Trey Mann and Poku, 2 guys that like we're really excited about.
Trey is in,
and we haven't even mentioned Aaron Wiggins.
Yeah, Wiggins is questionable for like the immediate rotation. Honestly,
that's wild.
I think Poku is in there at some kind of wing position. Like we're already at 10 guys. Like there's 10 guys, and
it's crazy
that's only one. And that's only one of the draft picks.
Yeah, that's only if you bring in one draft pick. Obviously, like you're hoping to bring in 2 or 3 and get them playing time.
Exactly. So if you're somebody that thinks like Roby or even Lindy Waters, like there's a lot of excitement. Like Lindy was awesome yesterday. Lindy's great to talk to. If you think Lindy Waters is going to have a spot in this rotation, like he's going to have to be like a 45% 3-point shooter. We're like, we just can't. We have to have him. We just have to have him. But the odds of him being that, it's like they're like the odds aren't good. The odds aren't really there. And like same with Roby. Like if you love what Roby did at the end, he's definitely in the rotation. Take a look at the rotation. Like he's not going to play.
It is kind of like one of the tricks that these seasons play on you, because it really feels like 2 separate seasons. And like we've had enough time with the bench guys now. I mean, it's been like a couple months now that you get to know them. You get to know their games. Yeah. You get to see what you like about them. And that's all you're really thinking about, forgetting that there's like 10 guys not playing.
Yeah, I know. And this is where, because the fact that like you can give the ball to Shea, Giddy, Trey, even Dort, even Kenrich, even Poku. It's like we don't like that's like the guard rotation. Like that's it right there. SGA, Dort, Giddy, Trey, Kenrich, Poku.
And then imagine bringing like Jaden Ivey on this team if he's the best player available.
Yeah, that's where that's honestly where you just start. You're like, we're committed to playing smaller.
Yeah,
is what it becomes. Because if you add Ivy to this team, I don't know what the starting lineup looks like. Like, are you willing to let Giddy guard fours?
yeah.
I would be. You get so weird, which I think is great because like this team is currently constructed. They don't have the top end talent enough to be traditionally good. So you're going to have to, unless they, get really lucky in this lottery and the guy turns into the guy, or they get lucky in the next lottery and they get Wembanyama or Scoot or somebody that's like some kind of outlier. Like, you've got to be different in some way. And if your point guard is also the guy who defends the four on the other end, like, that is like such an odd wrinkle that will really throw teams off. Because I think it's almost interesting because I think that Giddy's, once he's going to get bigger and stronger. The dude's still a teenager. He's going to get bigger and stronger. And like, ultimately, like, people are like, well, he's not athletic enough, but he sure as heck is athletic enough to guard the four position in the NBA. And I think he's going to get strong enough to do that.
Yeah, I think that's where he ends up defensively, especially if you have like a big like rim protector.
Mm-hmm. That's where like, adding Chet to this team, where you become like the ultimate weirdo team.
It would be very nice.
It's kind of incredible because, there's a world where it's SGA, Dort, Kenrich, Giddy, and that's where you can add Chet in there.
Yeah.
And is there enough shooting there? I don't know. It depends on what happens with these guys. And really, if Dort can just become a 3-point shooter from the corner only, like, I think that would be very beneficial to the team. And then if Giddy did talk about how he's going to be tweaking his shot this summer, and that is his main focus in the offseason. And he even said it himself that it's my swing skill. And if I can become, and he talked about how like the off season for young guys is what separates you from others. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. That's probably something that Sam and Mark told you, but
right.
It's true. Like, it's very true.
Yeah.
This is where the improvements happen. This is where the leaps happen. And we saw it happen with the first iteration of the Thunder, where it was like, oh man, like Russ is a lot better than he was last year. Like, this is like turning into something. And James Harden has taken like a leap here. That's what happens between year 1 and year 2, year 3 for these players. And even Shea, like Shea still, there's a strong belief that Shea has a long way to go to get to his ceiling. Mark talked about it in his exit interview that he thinks that Shea is going to be a great player, like not just a like good player. He's going to be a great player, which I don't know. I think you take it with a grain of salt coming from the coach. But still, it's encouraging. Thoughts on Dort's comment about the playoffs? So the quote, and I even put it out there, and the question was misquoted, which is funny. Because I did ask Dort what the goals are for next season. Is it the play-in tournament? Is it just trying to get better? What is it? Or do you have a goal in terms of wins too as a part of it? He said the playoffs definitely is the goal. And it's an interesting one. I don't think they're going to do that. But
I mean, what else would he ever say? I mean, what other goal could there possibly be? He's not going to say top draft pick.
Like, we want Scoot.
Like, as a player, like, you're either going to talk about your own individual development, but if you're thinking of it in a team reference, the only thing you would say is playoffs. What else could you possibly say? There's nothing else interesting to say.
Yeah, Josh answered the same question And he said, whether we make the playoffs or not, like it's just all about getting better.
See, he's been trained.
He's been coached up, and he's doing a great job. Good job, Josh.
Oh, Andrew, I have to go.
Okay, Al's got to go. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. We will talk to you guys again on Friday.